Emma worked as a waitress at the Bluebird Diner in a small coastal town. The morning sun cast a golden glow through the windows as she poured coffee for her regular customers. She knew everyone by name and remembered their usual orders. Mr. Jenkins always wanted his eggs over easy. Mrs. Thompson needed extra butter for her toast. Emma served them all with a warm smile, though behind that smile hid the worries of a single mother struggling to make ends meet. Her daughter Lily was only 8 years old and needed new shoes for school. The rent was due next week, and Emma had put aside just enough to cover it. Still, she greeted each customer with kindness. That was just her way. The Bluebird Diner sat near the town square with large windows that looked out onto the street. It was nothing fancy, just a simple place with blue-checkered curtains and worn wooden tables. The smell of bacon and pancakes filled the air most mornings. On this particular autumn day, the wind blew cold and strong. Leaves danced across the pavement outside. Emma noticed an elderly man sitting alone on the bench across the street. He had been there yesterday too and the day before. "Who's that man outside?" she asked Betty, the cook who had worked at the diner for 20 years. Betty glanced up and frowned. "That's William. He's been hanging around for weeks now. Homeless, I think. The shops keep asking him to move on." Emma watched him through the window. His clothes were worn and dirty. His shoes had holes. He clutched an old red cap with a political slogan that many in town didn't care for. But what caught Emma's attention most was the sadness in his eyes. He looked lost and alone. When her break time came, Emma made a decision. She took a plate and filled it with scrambled eggs, bacon, and toast. She added a cup of hot coffee and wrapped it all carefully. "What are you doing?" Betty asked with raised eyebrows. "Just using my employee meal," Emma replied. She walked outside, crossing the street to where William sat hunched against the cold. "Hello there," she said gently. "I thought you might like something warm to eat." William looked up, surprise clear on his weathered face. His hands were rough and calloused, working hands that hadn't been idle by choice. "I can't pay for this, miss," he said, his voice low and gruff. Emma shook her head. "It's my employee meal. Please take it. It's too cold to sit out here without something in your stomach." William hesitated, then accepted the food with trembling hands. "Thank you kindly," he said. Emma sat down beside him on the bench. She had 15 minutes left on her break. "I'm Emma," she said. "William," he replied between bites of food. He ate slowly, savoring each mouthful as if it might be his last good meal for a while. As he ate, William began to talk. His voice grew stronger with each word, as if he hadn't had anyone to talk to in a long time. "I worked at the factory outside town for 30 years, he said. "Made car parts, good job. Bought a small house for me and my Martha." Emma listened quietly. "Then the factory moved overseas. Cheaper labor, they said. Let us all go with 2 weeks' notice." William took a sip of coffee. "I was 57. Too young to retire, too old for anyone to hire." The wind blew colder, but Emma didn't move. "Martha got sick after that. Cancer. The medical bills piled up. Had to sell the house to pay them." William's voice cracked slightly. "She passed last year. After that the money ran out, and here I am." He touched the red cap on his head. "People see this and make up their minds about me right away." "Don't see the man underneath, just the cap." Emma nodded. "People are quick to judge what they don't understand." "I never thought I'd end up here," William said quietly, "on a bench with nowhere to go, but I'm still hopeful things will turn around." "Have to be, right?" Emma smiled at him. "Hope is important. It keeps us going when nothing else will." They sat in comfortable silence as William finished his meal. Politics didn't matter when someone was hungry. Emma saw only a human being who needed kindness. From inside the diner, Robert, the manager, watched through the window with narrowed eyes, his lips pressed into a thin, disapproving line as he saw Emma sitting with the homeless man in the red cap. Emma checked her watch. Her break was almost over. "I should get back to work," she said, standing up. "Thank you, Emma," William said, "not just for the food, for sitting with me, for talking to me like I'm still somebody." "You are somebody, William," Emma replied. "Don't let anyone make you think different." As Emma walked back to the diner, she didn't notice Robert's angry glare through the window. She didn't know that her simple act of kindness would cost her dearly, and she certainly couldn't have guessed that in exactly 28 minutes, her whole life would change because of what she had done. Robert watched Emma from the window of the Bluebird diner. His face grew dark as she sat talking with the homeless man in the red cap. Robert had owned the diner for 15 years. He cared about its image. Clean tables, good food, respectable customers. Not homeless people with political views that might upset the town's more wealthy visitors. When Emma walked back through the door, wiping her hands on her blue apron, Robert called out to her, "Emma, my office, now." His voice was sharp enough to make the customers look up from their plates. Emma felt a cold feeling in her stomach. She knew that tone. She followed Robert to the small back office where bills were paid and schedules were made. The room smelled of coffee and paper. A small fan turned slowly in the corner. "Close the door," Robert said. He sat down behind his desk and pointed to the chair across from him. Emma sat, her hands folded in her lap. "What were you thinking, giving food to that homeless man?" Robert demanded. His face was red now. "He drives customers away with his appearance and those political views. Mrs. Harding from the book club saw you out there. She told me she might take their monthly meetings elsewhere." Emma sat up straight. "He's just a hungry person, Robert. I used my own meal allowance, the one you give all staff." "That meal is for you to eat, not to give away," Robert said. He tapped his fingers on the desk. "And this isn't the first time you've bent the rules, Emma. Last week you let that family who was short on cash pay less than their bill. The week before you stayed after hours to help Betty clean when she wasn't feeling well. Those were the right things to do," Emma said quietly. Robert shook his head. "This is a business, not a charity. I'm sorry, but I have to let you go." The words hit Emma like a slap. She had worked at the Bluebird for 3 years. It wasn't much, but it paid the rent on the small apartment where she and Lily lived. "You're firing me for feeding someone who was hungry. I'm firing you for not following diner policy several times now." Robert pulled open a drawer and took out an envelope. "Here's your pay through today. I added a little extra." "I'm not heartless, Emma." Emma took the envelope with numb fingers. Her mind raced ahead to bills that needed paying. Rent due next week. Lily's school trip money. The winter boots her growing daughter needed. "Clean out your locker before you go," Robert said, already. Looking down at papers on his desk, Emma walked out to the small staff room. She opened her locker and took out her spare shoes, a sweater, and the small picture Lily had drawn of the two of them, that Emma kept taped inside the door. She put everything into her bag, fighting back tears that burned behind her eyes. Betty came in as Emma was closing her locker. "Is it true he fired you?" Emma nodded, not trusting her voice. "That's not right," Betty said, anger in her voice. "I've worked here 20 years, and I've never seen a better waitress or a kinder person." "Thanks, Betty," Emma managed to say. "I'll be fine." But as she walked through the diner toward the door, Emma didn't feel fine at all. The customers watched her go. Some looked away, embarrassed. A few whispered behind their hands. George, the old man who came every morning for his coffee and crossword puzzle, caught her eye and gave her a sad nod. Outside, the wind had picked up. Emma stood on the sidewalk holding her bag, wondering what to do next. She had no other job lined up. The diner had been her steady income since Lily was 5. "Miss Emma?" She turned to see William standing near her. His eyes were full of concern. "I saw what happened through the window," he said. "You're in trouble because of me. I'm so sorry." Emma tried to smile. "Don't worry about me, William. I'll find something else." But her voice trembled as she spoke. "Your kindness matters," William said earnestly. "More than you know. In this world, people who care get punished sometimes, but good comes back. You'll see." Emma nodded, but she wasn't sure she believed him. "Take care of yourself, William. Maybe find somewhere warmer to sit than that bench." She walked to her old car, a blue sedan with a dent in the back door from when someone had hit it in a parking lot 3 years ago. As she drove home, she passed the school where Lily would be in class right now. The thought of her daughter's face when Emma told her they might have to move made fresh tears come to her eyes. The apartment was quiet when Emma walked in. It was small, just 2 bedrooms, a bathroom, and a kitchen living room. But it was clean and safe and close to Lily's school. The rent took half of Emma's monthly pay from the diner. Without that job, they wouldn't last long here. Emma sat at the small kitchen table and emptied the envelope Robert had given her. She counted the money twice, working out how far it would stretch. Maybe 2 weeks, if they were careful. She looked at the phone. She should start calling about jobs right away. But who would hire her so quickly? And what about references? Would Robert give her a good one after today? Emma made herself a cup of tea and sat by the window, watching the street below. She had always taught Lily that helping others was right. That kindness mattered. But now she wondered if she should have been more practical, more careful, less kind. The clock on the wall ticked loudly. In 2 hours, Lily would come home from school full of stories about her day. Emma needed to be strong for her. She needed to have a plan. But for now, she let herself cry. Just for a few minutes, for the job she had lost, for the homeless man who had lost so much more. And for a world where being kind could cost you everything. The big clock on the diner wall showed exactly 28 minutes had passed since Emma walked out the door. The lunch rush was starting. People came in from the cold, stomping their feet and rubbing their hands together. Robert moved between tables, filling in for Emma, his face tight with stress. He wasn't used to serving customers anymore. He spilled coffee on Mr. Wilson's newspaper and put salt in Mrs. Davis's tea by mistake. A sleek black car pulled into the parking lot. It stood out among the dusty trucks and old sedans. The car door opened and a tall man stepped out. He wore a fine grey suit and polished black shoes. His white hair was neatly cut, and his back was straight despite his age. The bell over the door jingled as he walked in. The diner grew quiet. Something about the man made people stop talking. He stood in the doorway, looking around with sharp, blue eyes that missed nothing. Betty, watching from the kitchen window, whispered to Mary the cook, "That's Thomas Bennett, rich as they come, owns half the buildings in town." Thomas Bennett walked to the center of the diner. His voice was deep and clear when he spoke. "I'm looking for the waitress who helped the homeless man outside," he announced. "The one in the red cap." Robert hurried over, wiping his hands on a towel. His smile was too wide, too nervous. "May I help you instead, sir?" Robert asked. "I'm the owner and manager." Thomas Bennett looked down at Robert. "The waitress," he insisted. "Where is she?" Robert's smile faltered. "I'm afraid she's not here right now." From behind the counter, Mary called out, "She was just fired for feeding that man." Her voice shook a little, but her chin was up. Betty nudged Mary with her elbow, but Mary didn't back down. "It's not right what happened to Emma," she added. Thomas's expression hardened. His eyes, friendly a moment before, turned cold. "Is that so?" he asked. "And you are the manager?" He looked at Robert. Robert nodded uncomfortably. "Yes, sir." "Robert?" "Pills. It's my diner." His voice had lost its confidence. "I'm Thomas Bennett," the man said. People around the diner murmured. Everyone knew that name. "I own several businesses in this town. That homeless man is William Parker." Robert's face went pale. "William Parker?" "Yes," Thomas continued. "He worked for me for 30 years at Bennett Manufacturing. He was my floor manager. Best worker I ever had. When corporate headquarters moved our factory overseas against my wishes, William lost everything." The diner fell silent as customers and staff listened. Even the cook stopped flipping burgers to hear. "I sold the company 5 years ago," Thomas said. His voice was sad now. "The new owners made changes I couldn't stop. I've been searching for William for months to make things right. Today he called me from the payphone across the street." Thomas looked around the diner. "William told me about the waitress's kindness. Emma, I believe her name is. In a world where he's been invisible, she saw him as a person." He straightened his tie. "I came to thank her and offer her a position in my new community project." Betty smiled behind her hand. Mary nodded with satisfaction. Robert's face had gone from pale to red. I didn't know," he stammered. "If I had known who he was—" "That's exactly the point," Thomas cut in. "You shouldn't need to know who. Someone is to treat them with basic human dignity." He shook his head. "William Parker helped build this town. He paid taxes, joined the church, raised money for the school. And when he needed help, he became invisible. Except to Emma." Robert swallowed hard. I can call her back. No need, Thomas replied coldly. I'll find her myself. He looked around at the watching customers. And I think I'll reconsider my business lunches here. My company brings in about 30 people each week. He turned to leave, then stopped. By the way, where does Emma live? I have a job offer for her. No one spoke for a moment. Then Betty stepped forward. I know where she lives, she said. I'll write down the address for you. As Thomas Bennett waited, Robert stood frozen behind the counter. He watched as Betty wrote Emma's address on a napkin. He watched as Thomas folded it carefully and put it in his pocket. He watched as Thomas Bennett walked out of his diner, taking with him the business of the richest man in town. When the door closed behind Thomas, the diner erupted in talk. Everyone had something to say about what they had just seen, about Emma's kindness, about Robert's mistake, about William Parker, who they had all ignored on his bench. Mary looked at Robert with a small smile. Guess being kind does pay off, she said. Robert didn't answer. He walked slowly to his office and closed the door. Outside, Thomas Bennett sat in his car looking at the address on the napkin. He thought about William Parker, his loyal employee for 30 years. He thought about Emma, who had seen William when no one else would. He thought about second chances and making things right. He started his car and pulled out of the parking lot. The Bluebird diner grew small in his rearview mirror as he drove toward Emma's apartment, carrying with him a chance to change her life. On the bench across the street, William Parker watched the black car drive away. For the first time in months, he smiled. Something told him that things were about to change, not just for him, but for the kind waitress who had seen him as a person, not just a homeless man in a red cap. Emma sat at her small kitchen table with a cup of tea that had gone cold. The newspaper lay open to the jobs section. She had circled 3 possibilities in red pen: night clerk at the gas station, cleaner at the hotel, and helper at the bakery. None paid as well as her job at the diner, but beggars couldn't be choosers. Lily was at a friend's house for the afternoon. Emma was glad her daughter wasn't home to see her worry. She had always tried to be strong for Lily, to show her that they could manage, just the two of them. The doorbell rang, startling Emma. She wasn't expecting anyone. She pushed back her chair and went to the door, smoothing her hair with one hand. When she opened the door, Emma froze in surprise. There stood William, the homeless man from the bench, but he wasn't alone. Beside him was an older gentleman in an expensive grey suit. "Hello, Emma," William said with a small smile. "This is my friend, Thomas Bennett." Emma blinked, confused. William didn't look so lost now. He stood straighter, his eyes clear and hopeful. "May we come in?" Thomas asked politely. "We have something important to discuss with you." Emma stepped back, opening the door wider. "Of course," she said, though she wasn't sure what was happening. "I'm sorry the place is a mess. I wasn't expecting visitors." The 2 men followed her into the small living room. Emma quickly picked up Lily's school books from the sofa to make room for them to sit. "Would you like some tea?" she offered, remembering her manners. "No, thank you," Thomas said. "We won't take much of your time." William sat on the edge of the sofa, looking uncomfortable in the clean, warm room. "Emma, I hope you don't mind that I found you. After what happened at the diner." "It's fine," Emma said, though she still didn't understand. "But how did you know where I live?" Thomas Bennett cleared his throat. "I went to the diner looking for you. A kind woman named Betty gave me your address." Emma sat down in the chair across from them. "You went to the diner, why?" "William called me," Thomas explained. "We've been looking for each other for some time." William nodded. "I worked for Mr. Bennett for 30 years at his factory. I was his floor manager before it closed down." "William was the best employee I ever had," Thomas added. "When I sold the company 5 years ago, the new owners moved everything overseas. I didn't know until it was too late. By then, William and many others had lost their jobs." Emma looked between the 2 men, beginning to understand. "So you're not really homeless?" she asked William. William's eyes dropped. "I am now, after my wife's medical bills and losing the house, but Mr. Bennett has been looking for me. He wants to help the workers who lost their jobs when the factory closed." Thomas leaned forward, his eyes serious. "Emma, William told me what you did for him today. How you were kind when no one else was. How you lost your job because of it. Emma's face grew warm. I just did what anyone would do. But that's just it, Thomas said. No one else did. Only you. He straightened his tie. I'm starting a community support center here in town, a place where people can get meals, job training, help with housing. We need someone to manage it. Someone with compassion and work ethic. Emma stared at him, not understanding. I'd like to offer you the position, Thomas said. The salary is twice what you made at the diner, plus health benefits and a retirement plan. Emma's mouth fell open. She looked at William, who was smiling now. This is a joke, right? She asked weakly. I never joke about business, Thomas replied. I've learned in my 70 years that character matters more than experience. You have the right heart for this job, Emma. Emma shook her head, still in shock. But why me? You don't even know me. William told me everything, Thomas explained. When I sold my company, I made a lot of money. The new owners closed our local factory and hurt a lot of good people. I've come back to make things right for the community. He looked at her with kind eyes. People like you, who see the humanity in others, regardless of their circumstances or beliefs, are exactly who I need. Emma's hands were shaking. I don't know what to say. Say yes, William encouraged her. You helped me when I was at my lowest. Now let us help you. What about William? Emma asked. Will he be okay? Thomas nodded. I've arranged temporary housing for William in the apartments near the new centre, and he'll have a maintenance position there if he wants it. William looked down at his worn shoes. I tried to say no. It feels too much like charity. It's not charity, Thomas insisted firmly. It's a second chance, the same one I got many years ago when I was young and broke and someone believed in me. He stood up and held out his hand to Emma. What do you say? Will you join us? Emma looked at his outstretched hand. Just this morning she had been a waitress, then unemployed. Now this unexpected offer. She thought of Lily, of their small apartment, of the bills piling up. She thought of all the people like William who needed help. She took Thomas's hand and shook it. Yes, she said, I would be honored. Later that evening, after the men had left with plans to meet again tomorrow, Emma waited for Lily to come home. She had so much to tell her, about losing her job and finding a new one, about William and Thomas, about how helping others had somehow led to this amazing opportunity. When Lily burst through the door, her school bag bouncing against her back, Emma gathered her into a hug. Mum, you're home early, Lily said in surprise. Emma sat her daughter down at the kitchen table and told her everything that had happened that day. About the homeless man and the meal, about being fired and feeling lost, about the unexpected visitors and the job offer. Lily's eyes grew wider with each part of the story. Sometimes life turns in ways we don't expect, Emma said when she finished. The important thing is to be kind even when it's difficult. Lily hugged her mother tightly. I'm proud of you, Mum, she whispered. Emma held her daughter close, feeling for the first time in years that maybe everything would be all right after. All the old market building stood tall at the end of Main Street. 6 months ago it had been empty, with broken windows and faded signs. Now bright blue paint covered its walls. A new sign hung over the door. Community Hope Center. Inside, the smell of fresh bread filled the air. The soup kitchen served breakfast to a line of people. Some wore business clothes, stopping for coffee before work. Others wore whatever clothes they could find. All were welcome. Emma walked through the main hall, checking that everything was ready for the day. Her hair was pulled back neatly, and she wore a simple blue dress. She looked different now, more confident, less tired. Running the center was hard work, but it filled her with purpose. Good morning, Mrs. Thompson, Emma said to an elderly woman setting up the clothing bank. Those new winter coats came in yesterday. Already sorted them by size, Mrs. Thompson replied with a smile. The children's ones went fast. Emma nodded. Winter was coming, and many families needed help staying warm. In the back room, William checked the heating system. At 63, he moved more slowly than younger men, but his hands were skilled and sure. His beard was gone now, his face clean-shaven. His uniform, dark blue with Hope Center stitched on the pocket, was always clean and pressed. William had moved into a small flat near the center 4 months ago. It wasn't much, just one bedroom, a tiny kitchen and a bathroom. But it was his. Pictures of his late wife Martha sat on the bedside table. Sometimes he talked to her about his new life. "Morning, William," Emma called as she passed the maintenance room. William looked up and smiled. "Morning, Emma. Heating's working fine now. Fix that noise in the pipes." "You're a miracle worker," Emma said. "The job training class starts at 10. Are you still speaking to them?" William nodded. "Got my notes ready." He had started mentoring young people who couldn't find work. He taught them practical skills, fixing things, basic carpentry, how to show up on time and work hard. His students respected him. They didn't see a homeless man now. They saw a teacher. At 9:30, a familiar face appeared at the center's door. Robert, the former diner owner, stood awkwardly holding a box of donuts. "Thought the morning class might like these," he said, not meeting Emma's eyes. "Thank you, Robert. That's thoughtful," Emma said, taking the box. "The coffee's fresh, if you want to stay for a cup." Robert nodded and followed her to the kitchen area. Things had changed for him too in the last 6 months. After firing Emma, the Bluebird Diner had lost business. Thomas Bennett had been true to his word about not bringing his company lunches there. Others in town had heard the story and taken their business elsewhere. 2 months ago, Robert had sold the diner. The day after, he had come to Emma with his head bowed. "I was wrong," he had said simply. "I judged people by their appearance and politics. I was wrong and I'm sorry." Emma had offered him a chance to volunteer at the center. 3 days a week, Robert now helped serve meals or sort donations. Today was one of his days. The new cooking class starts this afternoon, Emma told him as she poured him coffee. "We still need someone to help the instructor. Interested?" Robert nodded. "I'd like that. I can still make a decent omelette at least." The center grew busier as morning turned to afternoon. The job training room filled with people learning computer skills. In another room, children whose parents were in classes played with toys and books. The soup kitchen served lunch to anyone who came through the door. Thomas Bennett visited twice a week. Today he walked through the center with a clipboard, checking off items on his list. When he reached Emma, his serious face broke into a smile. 97 people served lunch today, he said. 28 in job training, 5 interviews scheduled for next week. You're doing fine work, Emma. We all are, Emma corrected him. She looked around at the volunteers busy at their tasks. Everyone here makes this place work, Thomas nodded. True enough. By the way, how's Lily doing with those science projects? Emma smiled. Thomas had become something of a grandfather figure to her daughter. She got an A on her last one. She's talking about being a doctor now. Smart girl, Thomas said, like her mother. As the day ended and the center quieted, Emma found William sitting alone in the break room. A cup of tea steamed in front of him. Tomorrow would mark 1 year since they had met, when Emma was still a waitress and William still homeless. Emma made herself a cup of tea and sat across from him. "Did you ever imagine things would turn out this way?" she asked. William looked up, his eyes clearer and brighter than they had been that cold day a year ago. "I always had hope," he said quietly, "even on that bench, but hope doesn't keep you warm at night." He wrapped his hands around the mug. "You were the one who saw me when I was invisible. That's the real miracle." Emma shook her head. "I just did what was right." "Most people don't," William said. "Most people look away." Emma looked around at the center they had built together, not just her and William, but Thomas and Robert, and Mrs. Thompson and all the others who had joined them. Maybe that's all any of us need, to be truly seen. Their story had spread throughout the town and beyond. A local newspaper had written about them. Then a bigger paper had picked it up. People from other towns came to see how the center worked, hoping to build something similar. All because a waitress had seen a homeless man not as a problem, but as a person. All because she had shared a meal and listened to his story. All because, when faced with a choice between what was easy and what was kind, she had chosen kindness. As Emma and William finished their tea, the last light of day faded from the windows. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new faces, new stories. But tonight, in the quiet of the center they had helped create, they could rest, knowing that a simple act of kindness had sparked unexpected changes that touched countless lives. William picked up their empty cups. "Same time tomorrow?" he asked with a small smile. "Same time tomorrow," Emma agreed. Some things, at least, were wonderfully predictable.